The island of Corsica is one of the treasure troves of the Mediterranean. Its coastal waters harbor strange and wonderful creatures, some of which exist nowhere else in the world. In the aquatic near desert of the sea, coastal waters are teeming oases. The sea is a world in itself, with laws of its own. Its inhabitants seem to live in an alien dimension. The seabed off Corsica illustrates one of Europe's distinctive natural ecosystems. Beneath the surface of these coastal waters lies one of the wonders of nature. Named after the Roman god of the sea, Neptune grass is a seagrass endemic to the Mediterranean. Like other seagrasses, it grows in vast underwater meadows. One of our oddest but best-loved creatures depends on Neptune grass meadows for its survival. With their equine heads, chameleon eyes, kangaroo-style pouches, and monkey-like prehensile tails, seahorses look like mythical beasts straight out of classical legend. They are quite real, but they are neither mammals nor marsupials. Seahorses are actually very unusual species of fish. They feed by sucking small animals through their long snouts as if drinking through a straw. Their presence is closely linked to seagrass meadows, and like Neptune grass, they are among the treasures of the Mediterranean. From the base to the tips of its leaves, Neptune grass is a haven for an astonishing range of species. Deep within the Neptune grass meadow, at the base of the stems, a noble pen shell opens. The noble pen shell is the biggest shellfish in the world. It is only found in the Mediterranean and can grow to over a meter long. Despite its huge size, it can move around, albeit slowly. Neptune grass is an important factor in the survival of this species. When a noble pen shell reproduces, the seagrass meadow shelters and protects the giant mollusk's tiny larvae. The meadow is a gigantic nursery. Its dense foliage is an underwater jungle in which crustaceans, mollusks, fish, and other creatures can safely conceal their offspring. A hectare of Neptune grass contains nearly 3 metric tons of small creatures. The abundance of prey attracts predators. Sea anemones are not flowers, but animals. Mobile as fingers and equipped with a poison dart, their tentacles are a deadly trap for passing shrimps and small fish. Neptune grass does not just provide shelter, it is also a food source for numerous marine animals. This striped bream is called a Cephalopods. It is one of the few herbivorous fish in the Mediterranean. It's capable of biting through the tough Neptune grass leaves, tearing off sizable sections. You can certainly tell where the Cephalopods have been. They seem to have grazed the entire meadow, like a herd of sea cattle moving from pasture to pasture. As a change from Neptune grass, they feed on the algae that cling to the rocks. This is peacock's tail, a common species. And this is Acetobularia, or mermaid's wineglass, another alga found on the same rocks. It looks oddly like a toadstool and is eaten by many marine animals, including some real oddballs. This cute little bunny is a sea slug called the Eastern Emerald Elysia. It is only a few millimeters long. When it eats a mermaid's wineglass, it absorbs the chlorophyll that was in the plant. This turns it green and enables it to turn solar energy into food, just like a plant. The Elysia is halfway between an animal and a plant. Neptune grass flourishes here, amid the rocks just off the coast. Seagrasses are flowering plants that need light. Their green leaves stretch upwards to capture the sun's energy. They tend to grow near the surface, but Neptune grass is sometimes found at depths of almost 30 meters where the water is clear. Neptune grass is the Mediterranean's equivalent of a green lung. Its meadows emit nearly 14 liters of oxygen per square meter per day, twice as much as tropical rainforests. Its long stems grow only a few centimeters per year. Over the centuries, they mingle with the sand, forming a compact mass called a mat. At the base of the stalks, a cleanup squad is in action. With its flat underside, the striped red mullet glides along the sea bottom like a steam iron. Its sensitive barbels detect the presence of prey in the sand. As it rakes the ground, it sends up clouds of fine particles. These smoke signals attract scavengers, like the Mediterranean rainbow wrasse, which tails the striped red mullet closely, hoovering up the crumbs from its table. The sea cucumber fits right into this weird and wonderful world. In fact, it is a valuable ally for Neptune grass. Its anatomy is simple, consisting of a digestive tract with an orifice at each end, one for eating and the other for excreting. Sea cucumbers swallow, filter, and regenerate the sediment and waste they find on the sea floor, thereby helping the Neptune grass grow. They move only a few meters a day, but each one gets through about 45 kilos of food a year. They may be short on charisma, but sea cucumbers are very useful. The Neptune grass meadow is also home to small, cleaner fish. The black-tailed wrasse's job is to remove parasites from other fish living in the meadow. It swims in a particular way to signal its intentions. The recipient of its services also assumes a peaceful attitude. Not far from the meadow, a moray is resting in its hole, with only its head showing. Morays can be up to 1.5 meters long. During the day, they rest and present no danger. Their close-set eyes, typical of a predator, enable them to see contours, and their tubular nostrils help them scent their prey. But this one isn't hunting right now. It is spring, and the coast is a blaze of color. On land, too, the Mediterranean is full of surprises. Its islands are home to a weird flower with unusual properties. This plant isn't a sci-fi creation, but a dead horse arum lily. Its giant flower gives off an insidious scent of rotting flesh that lures flies into the trumpet. Once inside, they cover themselves with pollen and fertilize the flower. Dead horse arum lilies are only found on Corsica and Sardinia. Underwater, a whole different set of creatures come out at night, creating another equally extraordinary world. While some animals doze, others are wide awake. Fish sleep with their eyes open, hardly surprising given that they have no eyelids. They hover near the seabed, hidden in the foliage. The Neptune grass is teeming with nocturnal wildlife. Some animal species provide each other with mutual services. This is what happens when sea anemones attach themselves to the shell of a hermit crab. Sea anemones have very effective defense systems. Any hint of danger, and they shoot out stinging filaments in their enemy's direction. The hermit crab benefits from this protection. In return, it transports them from place to place, increasing their chances of encountering potential prey. The two species make a great team. As cephalopods, meaning literally head feet, cuttlefish are closely related to squids and octopuses. They have no skeleton, just a white internal shell made of calcium carbonate, curved to fit their bodies. When they're feeling calm, cuttlefish swim headfirst in the normal way, elegantly undulating their flexible outer membrane. But in the event of danger, they can propel themselves rapidly backwards by ejecting a powerful jet of water from their respiratory siphon. In other words, they use jet propulsion, just like an airplane. On the Lavezzi Islands, night reveals another mystery. The islands echo with eerie sounds. These ghostly cries are the song of Corse's shearwater. For over 7 months of the year, Corse shearwaters live out at sea, never setting foot on dry land. They only come to these islands to breed, and their courtship and mating are discreet affairs that take place at night. Corse's shearwaters are faithful. They mate in burrows under rocks, away from prying eyes. By daybreak, all of them will have gone, until the following night. They are related to albatrosses. With their wingspan of a meter or more, they are one of the Mediterranean's largest bird species. The liquid darkness is illuminated by living fairy lights. The shoal explodes like a firework made up of a myriad living organisms. These are pickerels, small fish that belong to the same family as anchovies. They feed on minuscule animal plankton, hunting in shoals. Being part of a thick shoal provides each one with protection against predators. In a close-knit mass, it is more difficult for a predator to single out and catch an individual fish. That doesn't seem to bother the squid. It materializes in the darkness like a phantom, suddenly looming up on its prey. In the magical light of the moon, a tentacled creature extends 8 muscular arms from the depths of its secret grotto. Octopuses are soft-bodied and can squeeze through even a tiny opening. But they are by no means soft-headed. As well as having large central brains, octopuses have secondary brains in each of their 8 tentacles. In fact, they are among the most intelligent of all marine animals. Their suckers provide them with information about their surroundings and are 10 times as sensitive as the human tongue. Their skin contains special cells that enable them to change color faster than any other animal. Octopuses attack their victims with their tentacles and encircle them with their arms before killing them. Daylight reveals a prehistoric-looking animal, a Hermann's tortoise. It is the only land tortoise found on Corsica, one of the few parts of Europe where it is still common. Another miniature dinosaur emerges from its stronghold. This gem of Mediterranean wildlife is a Tyrrhenian wall lizard. It is only found on Corsica, Sardinia, and a handful of islets. It is about 20 centimeters long. With its long claws, it is a highly agile climber and doesn't give a second thought to the sheer drop or the sea below. The further down you go, the less light there is, and the stranger and more settling the inhabitants become. They seem to flout all the usual codes of life on Earth. At each level, a different world greets our eyes, bursting with colorful and, in some cases, surreal life. Nothing is what it seems like here. What looks like a flower turns out to be a worm belonging to the Sabella genus. The Sabella builds a tube for itself and hides in it until it feels safe. Then it spreads out its crown of gills and filters water through them to extract air and plankton. On the seabed in the Marine Nature Reserve of Scandola, an animal forest grows on the rocks. This fantastical tree is a colony of living beings known as red coral. In fact, the tree is like a block of flats inhabited by curious little animals called polyps. Polyps are a sort of very small sea anemone. They are invertebrates and work together to build a solid structure to live in. Corals only grow 2 or 3 millimeters a year. Red coral is one of the wonders of nature and has always been highly sought after. It is now protected by law. Red coral polyps are not the only animal that builds colonies in this way. So do gorgonians. Gorgonians, or sea fans, are expert builders, sometimes constructing edifices over a meter high. "30 meters below the surface, the rocks and their unlikely inhabitants are reminiscent of a scene from science fiction. This particular extraterrestrial may look like a shellfish, but in fact, it is a Mediterranean sea slug, a slug with an external shell. Yellow cluster anemones live in colonies in places where there is not much light, sometimes covering several square meters of rock. They are found in areas swept by currents, where particles of food are regularly brought within reach of their tentacles. Even this far down, marine wildlife is a festival of shapes and colors. A gang of goldenfish light up the rocks. They are called sea ravens, and like most ravens, they croak. The underwater world is not silent. Many fish sing by vibrating their swim bladders, grinding their teeth, or rubbing their fins together. Some croak, while others squeak, growl, or whistle. These sounds are thought to be used in the same way as birdsong, to charm a potential mate, to threaten a rival, to notify others of their presence, to warn of approaching danger, and so on. The most musical marine animals are the cetaceans. It is sometimes possible to make out actual tunes in the song of dolphins, whales, and sperm whales. Dolphins are frequent visitors to the south side of Corsica. They frequently feature in classical mythology and are strongly associated with the Mediterranean. Dolphins are a kind of ruminant. in that their stomachs are divided into several chambers. They are closely related to cows, with whom they share a common terrestrial ancestor. In the course of evolution, dolphins lost their legs and returned to the sea. But cattle remain genetically closer to dolphins than to horses. Goats are a specialty in these parts. There have been domestic goats here since prehistoric times. Tough, hardy, agile, and able to survive on very little food, they are ideally suited to mountains and maki. Back in the Neptune grass, summer is the mating season for many of the species that live there. Although they look quite different, sea urchins and starfish are closely related. Both have dozens of flexible feet that explore their surroundings by touch, can move in any direction, and have neither head nor tail. Understandably, it doesn't involve cuddling. When sea urchins mate, they do not touch each other. Instead, they release clouds of reproductive cells called gametes. The male and female gametes are brought into contact with each other by the currents. The Mediterranean is their surrogate mother. To move around, starfish use hundreds of small, flexible feet on their 5 arms. This one looks as if it's lying down, but in fact, it is standing up. The Mediterranean rainbow wrasse lives in harems of several females and 1 male. If the male dies, something odd happens. The dominant female becomes more masculine. In the space of a few days, she turns into a male and takes the place of the dead male. In other words, Mediterranean rainbow wrasse are transsexual. Among both Mediterranean rainbow wrasse and peacock wrasse, the male is in charge of the nest. He prepares a laying area on algae-covered rocks. Sometimes he even assembles materials, like a bird making a nest. He gives a swimming display in the waters above his construction to woo the females and encourage them to lay their eggs there. Then he fertilizes the eggs and guards the nest. It is also the mating season for the signature fish of the Mediterranean, the dusky grouper. Dusky groupers average 1 meter in length and 40 kilos in weight. Their trusting nature has made them all too easy to catch. As a result, they have been overfished and are now scarce. They are among nature's peacemakers, changing color depending on their age, social status, and even their mood, to let other individuals know if they are likely to attack, are submissive, or are ready to mate. This prevents fights and makes dating much easier. Like the Mediterranean rainbow wrasse, the dusky grouper is transsexual. At birth, all of them are female. Then, somewhere between the ages of 9 and 12, they change sex and become male. In the course of their lifespan, they breed first as a mother, then as a father. They can live to the age of 50. Whether you see it as a logical adaptation to circumstances, the stuff of fantasy, or a freak of nature, many fish can change sex. It's another startling facet of the Neptune grass ecosystem. The dusky grouper may be a typically Mediterranean fish, but some of the fish around here look as if they come from foreign parts. Barracudas are from the tropics, but in the last few years, more and more of them have been turning up in the Mediterranean, probably as a result of the opening up of the Suez Canal and global warming. In the burrows of the Corse shearwaters, this fledgling has grown. It takes both parent birds to look after just one chick. They feed it once a night after a pitch-dark fishing trip. The young bird will be able to look after itself from the age of 3 months, but its parents will abandon it before then. It will be driven by hunger to make its own way to the sea. By the time autumn comes, the shearwaters will have left the islands to spend the winter out at sea. In late summer, the seagrass meadow is racked by waves and storms. For some species, this marks the end of a cycle. Neptune grass leaves grow only for a few months before detaching themselves. They combine with lumps torn off the plants by the strongest waves to form a mass of debris. Neptune grass fibers do not rot. Instead, they are rolled into balls called egregopoli by the current. Each wave can transport huge quantities of fiber balls and dead leaves, which wash up on the beaches. Over time, they build up to form walls called banquettes that can be over a meter high. The banquettes act as barriers against coastal erosion, playing a vital part in stabilizing the shoreline. When boats anchor above the seagrass meadows, their anchors accidentally rip up the plants, endangering an entire ecosystem. Abandoned fishing nets present an additional threat, acting as underwater death traps. Where they are protected, the Mediterranean still has some fine Neptune grass meadows, and these offer sanctuary to a host of weird and wonderful creatures. Marine reserves provide havens where the Mediterranean's best-loved species, from the dolphin to the seahorse, via the dusky grouper, can live safely and build up their numbers. These Edenic settings contain larger specimens, greater numbers, and a wider variety of species than elsewhere. Neptune grass plays a hugely important part in preserving the treasures of the Mediterranean. To protect these treasures, it is vital to safeguard the unique ecosystems Neptune grass meadows represent.